Yes, that was the other hard. It was all in my 20s, and I I don't even recognize the person I became in order to survive through it, but I also have a lot of compassion for her because she did the best she could with the circumstances. Um, and I think of myself anytime I kind of go back and am hard on myself. I also think of myself as that little girl and just embracing her and, you know, telling her it's okay. Um,
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. I'm your host, Julie Clough, and I want to remind you that while you're here to like this video, show some love to our wonderful guests that we have, and make a comment, ask questions. We love to hear from you. And while you're here, don't forget to follow the show, subscribe, and hit that bell if you're in on YouTube, and hit that bell so you'll receive notifications when the next video comes out. Also, in the show notes, you will see there's a link for an angel guide if you're interested in that. Today, I am so excited to welcome to the show Kristen Hall. Hi, Kristen.
Hi there. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's so fun. I am so excited to hear your story. I've gotten to know you a little bit over the last few weeks, but I don't really know your story. So we're all going to learn it together, which is going to be really, really fun. But before we get started, just share a little snippet about yourself.
Sure. My name is Kristen Hall. I am a beginner psychic medium. I've been in psychic work for a couple of years now, through my business, The Empathic Soul, where I also life coach and I do group meditations with my background with hypnotherapy as well. But I've always been an empathic soul and a very connected individual. But I've only recently, I would say, over the last 5+ years, really accepted that and decided to dive deep into that and connect with my spirituality, with the divine. And um, it's been a journey getting here, and I'm excited to see where this all goes as well.
Well, that's great. Thank you for introducing us to the work that you do. And I think I don't know anybody that can't appreciate what you just said about, it's taken a while to to embrace these things that you have embraced. So let's go back into your story and wherever you want to start, just share kind of, some things that happened that started to open your awareness and where it went from there.
So, like I was saying, as a child, I was a very sensitive individual, someone that was quite connected to other people, could feel what other people felt, but no one in my immediate family was quite like that. So it got dismissed very quickly. And I also had experiences that they couldn't really understand beyond just feeling the emotions of other people. I remember waking up one time after a dream and having a dream of a life review where after you pass away, it's this theory, after you pass away, you go through a life review and you see how your life was through other people's perspectives from a higher perspective point. And I remember very clearly sitting there with my guides and inspirers from a past life and going through this life review. And I had to be only like 7 or 8 at the time.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I was very young and it stuck in my head. And I was just like, oh my gosh, who am I going to talk to about this? People are going to think I'm crazy. Because my family, while I love them dearly, it just had a hard time connecting with me in this point. I was always labeled too sensitive. Even at school, the second grade, I not so much sensitivity that was brought up, but I was like the peacekeeper. So I won the peacekeeper award because I was always one that connected with other people and brought people together. So while those gifts were very evident, I was kind of dismissed in a way because my family was afraid that I would get hurt very easily. Um,
Mm,
so I didn't really learn to tap into that until much later in life after I had several losses.
mm,
And
yeah.
that's when I tried to figure out, I was always trying to find a connection, if you will. Grew up Catholic, although we didn't go to church every Sunday. We were practicing Catholics in that I went to CCD class every week, and I remember thinking, I have a strong connection to God, but like this doesn't feel quite right for me. It felt
Mhm,
very controlled to me, just for me as a young kid. But I still felt like, oh, this is what they're saying is the way to connect. So I kind of went with that for a little while. Um, then after college and meeting my first spouse, we were trying to figure out what our connection looked like. And he at the time was not super spiritual or religious, so we tried a non-denominational church. And I loved the connection I felt, but something still didn't feel quite right. And I didn't realize what I was missing um, until that marriage began to break down
mhm,
and the losses that I experienced over the years. Everything kind of my tower moment, as you would say, like came crumbling down, and I had to like reevaluate everything. And then that's when I started thinking, okay, what do I really believe? What do I know to be true instead of what people are telling me? So there was a
mhm,
lot of soul searching going on, I would say, from like 2017. I mean, I'm still doing that soul searching, but like up until I had my daughter, I really just was trying to figure it all out.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. What did that feel like when where everything was kind of breaking down? And did you go back into the experiences that you had as a child? Were there other experiences that kind of stood out that you reflected on was it more like a remembering, oh, I had these experiences and they don't really line up with what other people are telling me. How do I want to integrate those? I'm just curious what came up during that time.
Yeah, so I had some experiences in young adulthood with spirituality as far as connecting with those who have passed that I kind of pushed to the side a little bit to kind of deal with life and what I was also told was wrong through the church. My
Mm-hmm.
dad had passed away in 2010, and that was my first major loss. And I was there at the hospital. I remember I had gotten there within 20 minutes of him dying. So I felt very much that he was waiting for me. And then that night, I remember having an experience where I was taking his picture off the mantle and being like, I'm always going to be your little girl. And then the lights just flickered. And I like I knew that that was him. So I had that in the back of my mind. And to me, connecting with those who had passed, knowing, like having these signs, it wasn't something that I ever felt was quite wrong. My first boss, Kelly, who teaches our mediumship class, she was actually one of the first that connected me to my dad. And that was before, my breakdown with my first marriage. And I remember at the time I got a lot of like, the church saying this isn't right. And my husband being like, this isn't, you're believing what you want to believe. And even my mom at the time, when she was still alive at that point, she was like, I don't know, and I could tell she met Kelly and she was trying to test her, like, is this really real? No one quite believed me. So I just kind of like pushed it all to the side. But I was having these flashback moments of all these things that had happened. And then when I lost my mom shortly before my daughter was born, this was in 2021, um, this was another major loss amongst some other little ones. And directly within my immediate family, I really began questioning everything. Um, I began thinking about what I went through with my divorce and um, just trying to put everything in perspective.
Ah. When did you start, like what was the catalyst that brought you to like psychic work and that type of thing?
So my when I had my divorce, that was the beginning of it, I would say, but I don't think I fully allowed myself to dive into it until after my mom passed away. And I realized then that that connection that I had felt, and I remember going back to it's funny because all these mediums and spiritual peoples just kind of showed up in my life at random points to kind of be the reminders of like, this is really who you are. It was kind of ironic, like just like Kelly being my first boss. And then I signed up for a free 15-minute Reiki session. I didn't know the girl was a psychic medium. And at the end, she's like, you just had a miscarriage, didn't you? And I'm like, so stuff like that. So I had gone back to that individual. Um, she didn't know, I don't know if she knew my mom had passed at that point, but I was just looking for some type of closure, even though I was getting signs. And she's like, at the end of it, after connecting, she's like, you know, you can do this. Like,
Mm.
you can do this type of work. And I'm feeling strongly that you should go downstairs and get yourself an oracle deck. Like, you need to start discovering your gifts because you have them. They've just been hidden under everything. You keep pushing them down. And I really thought about that because, okay, now my mom, my dad has passed, I just felt that draw to like, I had talked a little bit. My wife, she was kind of really skeptical because she's a cop, like they're taught to like, is this real kind of thing? But then when I started diving into it, and I kind of scared her a little bit because she's like, wow, this is eerily accurate. Um, and then she started questioning her own beliefs. So it was kind of a trickle effect.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I'm curious. So you mentioned, I'm going to go back a little bit, but you mentioned that as a 7-year old, you had this flashback to a previous lifetime, I think is and this life review of that lifetime. This might be completely like out of out of the blue, not connected, but I'm just curious from that review, were you somewhat psychic or connected, spiritually during that first life, that lifetime that you had the flashback of?
I believe I was, but I think I wouldn't let myself fully feel that. Like I
Okay.
said, I just started shutting those down, like those kind of, and I had several of those dreams where they felt really real, which now I'm thinking definitely past life. Um, and as I've grown up, I've had dreams of loved ones coming to me and telling me things, but I couldn't accept it because everyone around me thought I was a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
I think they were just so afraid of me getting hurt in the world,
Yeah.
that they didn't realize it was really holding me back from who I am and who I was meant to become.
hmm Yeah, I think sometimes, I wonder what your thoughts are about this, but I think sometimes our dreams, like our ego or our personality is asleep. And
Mhm.
so that's an opportunity for us to have these experience in a dream state that it feels a little safer because we can,
Yes.
we're introduced to these ideas, but we're, asleep, we're dreaming, so we can choose to integrate it or dismiss it or, believe it at whatever level feels safe in that moment.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a full believer that in order, it's one of the times when like the veil is the thinnest is when we're sleeping and we're able to connect a little bit easier. Granted, that's like what we as mediums try to do when we're awake and, trying to get to that same level brainwave to be able to connect. But for me, that was always the safest way to be able to do it, without feeling like I was going against the church or going against, my family and them just not understanding. So I could still kind of be a part of that without feeling rejected.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's I also find it really interesting that you said then people started showing up. It's like your tribe started showing up.
Yes,
And a
I remember my mom had her first, she was diagnosed with brain cancer and it was her first major brain surgery. So I'm like, I'd already lost my dad from cancer. I'm thinking in my head, oh, the worst I'm only like in my 20s. Um, and I remember that night before she had the surgery, my aunt's coming to me and a former teacher of mine who I was really close to coming to me and then being like, she's going to be okay, um, for now. It was interesting that, and they were right for now, for that moment, just kind of stay grounded. And it was just so vivid. It was wild, really wild.
so these were people in spirit that came to you in a dream or in your waking state, or what did that look like?
In a dream the night before my mom's surgery. Yeah, because
Okay.
at that time I still I kind of wouldn't allow it to happen when it was before I really dived deep into psychic and mediumship work. I
Yeah.
was still quieting everything.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, when you introduced yourself and you were talking about how you went through this transition of like accepting more of your gifts and starting to bring those in, I'm curious what that felt like um because I can just imagine that it would almost feel like coming home. I'm just curious what that felt like or what your experience was once you decided to kind of lean into it a little bit.
So interestingly enough, I think it was very difficult that first half. It was not quite, like, looking back how I was feeling, it wasn't feeling great to transition, to kind of shed all these layers, because everything I thought was my life or everything I thought I knew, was falling apart. So the
Mm,
first part of that was very difficult. But then when I was able to just kind of lean into it and just know, like, okay, X, Y, and Z, like my marriage, my job, this miscarriage, the house I was in, all of that, once I felt like I lost all of that and I was starting to step into something new, that's when it started to feel good.
yeah.
And that's when it started feeling like, I'm coming home to myself, essentially. And where I am now, I can't imagine if I stayed. Like I needed to go through that difficult period. I needed to question everything. And I needed to do it on my own terms. I feel like a lot of people at the time could have easily said, you need to do this, this, and this, but I wasn't ready for it. And then I feel like life just set up everything where I had to choose. I had
Yeah.
to choose, either I was going to continue to pedal in the water and slowly drown, or I was going to get out of it.
Yeah. It feels very much like this was part of your life plan and that things were put in place, little reminders, little crossroads, little introductions to people, new friendships, bosses, so forth, brought into your life,
Yes.
like planned before you even came here. You're going to have this experience for a few years where you get to live that, kind of disconnected life where you're
Yes.
sensing
Yes.
these things, but not you, no place to put them. no
Hmm.
place where it makes sense. The puzzle pieces belong to a different puzzle, and
Yeah.
you're trying to place them in the puzzle that you're in, and it's not working because they don't even belong in
Yes.
that existence.
Absolutely. I mean, there are some times when I let myself feel those feelings and I'm like, ugh, like I wish I didn't have to go through so many losses. Like, I wish that I didn't have to go through what I went through when I decided to leave my ex. I wish I didn't, lose this. And I wish I didn't get out of teaching. And like there's so many I wish, but then I step back and I'm like, you know what? I'm really proud of where I ended up. Also, I feel like I said I needed all of that. My higher self knew better. Like, while it wasn't a comfortable journey and while I wish I would have just come in knowing, it kind of defeats the point of life. Like, what would be the point of me living this life if I didn't learn these lessons? Like, it's one thing if somebody tells you something, but sometimes living it and really, deciding things for yourself is when you learn the biggest soul lessons you could.
Yeah. Yeah, you really did go through so much, losing your dad and then and your mom and a marriage and like you said, your home, a miscarriage and that's a lot. It's a lot in and young.
Yes, that was the other hard. It was all in my 20s, and I I don't even recognize the person I became in order to survive through it, but I also have a lot of compassion for her because she did the best she could with the circumstances. Um, and I think of myself anytime I kind of go back and I'm hard on myself, I also think of myself as that little girl and just embracing her and, you know, telling her it's okay. Um, Yeah, just thinking about it brings up a lot for me. A lot of emotions, good and difficult.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. This is definitely a lot. So, what does it look like? Like, what did that look like when you started practicing in this? It's one thing to start recognizing your gifts or recognizing your openness, your empathic abilities, and to start integrating that and start, feeling like, okay, this is who I am, and I'm going to
Mhm.
embrace this rather than push it down. What happened to cause you to start using those gifts to assist others and what did that look like?
So that medium who told me that, you need to start embracing those gifts. That was the start of it. Because I really took what she said to heart. Just knowing how accurate she had always been and just knowing, seeing and feeling, um, the way she said that to me. So I
Yeah.
really did take it to heart, bought an Oracle deck that day, began practicing, but also I feel like that was a journey in itself because it really was about learning to trust myself and stop questioning myself. Because while I was like, okay, I'm gonna start trying to do this, I was also like, are these accurate? Like, am I just making this up? Am I losing my mind? There was a whole nother like becoming because I had to learn how to shed the limiting beliefs and negative beliefs I had about myself that I wasn't capable of doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So I started with friends and close people. I just be like, don't tell me about what situation you want to know about, but let me just, see what comes up. And people were saying, oh, this is scarily accurate. Like, or it would come back a couple months, be like, this happened. Yeah. And so then I started becoming I started questioning. I'm like, do I want to do more of this for like an extended group of people? Um, so there was an opportunity at the time to do this class where I would, earn my life coaching, hypnotherapy, beginners Reiki, all that kind of stuff in one. So it was about a year of doing that, all of that. And while I was doing all of that, I was kind of planting seeds to start doing psychic work more expanded. And once I finished all those certifications, I decided to work on like a workbook that I would publish on Amazon. And that was another part of me accepting that, I do know these things and I am fully capable of, working in this field. Um, and then everything kind of started expanding within a mom's group on Facebook. People would recommend me and I would do different events. And it was just crazy how things kind of started to spiral in that direction in a positive way. While I feel like I've had to take steps back, in order to balance everything in life currently, um, it's also been an amazing journey and stepping forward. And then just recently, in the beginning of the year, I was talking to Kelly, my our mediumship teacher, and I was like, I've always worked in like I've been working in psychic work lately, but like I really feel called to mediumship because I've lost so many people, and I like being able to help people like know that that energy is not gone. Like I feel so connected to that. And she's like, I think you should just give it a try. Like, you're more, more than you think you do. So her encouragement also helped me kind of step into that, which felt a lot different and more foreign for me, but also more aligned in a weird way.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like anything when we try something new, it always feels a little awkward. But then all the work that
Yes.
you've done up to then had opened that avenue for you, that opportunity for you as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm really excited for where all this goes. I mean, it's definitely, I feel like mediumship is more of a challenge in that I feel like I'm constantly having to work on muscle versus psychic work. It comes more naturally to me.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, like I said, I just feel like I feel like part of one of my soul lessons was being able to have these big losses and to also realize that like it's not the end, and to help people with their grieving process and connecting, with their loved ones.
Yeah, I can really appreciate that. What can you share with us a couple of instances that stand out to you where you were working with a client or you were doing some either psychic or mediumship work where just stories of things that have happened in that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I I did one event at a fall kind of like a fall fest, right? And there was a bunch of different vendors. I'm like, let me just give it a try. Um, and I had done other ones where it was more psychic based. So this one was like, okay, I don't know what kind of clientele I'm going to get, because they might think I'm more of like a joke than take it seriously. But I was like, I'm also open to like people being skeptical and just seeing where it goes. So I had this one guy come up to me and he's like, he was all ready. He's like, I'm going to, I want to do this reading. But he's like, I had the psychic lady on the boardwalk tell me that we're going to get pregnant or something. And so he obviously went into it as a joke. But when he left, his demeanor completely changed. Like it was a heavier reading, and he just left very quietly. And like you could see that it was like, oh, this is real. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't ready for it. So I feel like there are some instances, those are the harder ones because, of course, to some degree, people should be skeptical because there's not always people that go into this with the right intentions. And I always go in with the right intentions, of being able to help someone with whatever they're going through, even if it's something that is challenging. I try to put it in a positive light. Um, so the skeptical ones always, get me because they'll be like, wait, asking questions, but then when they leave, that's what I think is most satisfying, seeing them begin to question for themselves what is real and what is not real. Like even if I plant that little seed, for them. That's really, important to me.
Yeah, connecting them to their spirituality. Were you doing a intuitive reading for him, or were you doing a mediumship reading for him?
I was doing a card reading, so I was using
Okay.
cards as like the beginning and then intuitively going off of what else I felt was
Yeah.
coming up for him. I haven't really done mediumship, for clients yet where it's paid because I still want to get a stronger foundation. But yeah, some of the psychic readings have been kind of wild, but there's also been really sad ones. Like ones where there was this, I think it was a birthday party that I did, and I was doing them one-on-one, and this reading was very heavy, and the woman, you could see she just started, bawling and like just asking me, how is everything going to be okay? And like that's where I felt like not the not the counselor in me, but the person that was trying to bring light to the reading. That's where that part of me came in, and I kind of had to step outside of the psychic work and be like, everything is going to be okay. It's just this is all part of your journey.
Mm, yeah, beautiful. Yeah, you have a you have a varied background with life coaching experience and hypnotherapy and oracle readings and all of that. You probably find like I do that all of that training comes into play. Doesn't matter what kind of work you're doing, it all comes into play. Like you bring all of that with you.
Absolutely. And that's why I kind of like don't know what to call myself because like I
Hey,
kind of
Beth.
make my own little box of who I am and what I do. That kind of sets me apart from other people, which I feel like a lot of people within our mediumship group do as well. They kind of set their own box, which is pretty cool because I feel like we can all kind of learn from each other and learn from other people based on their experiences and based on their training.
Yeah. What would you want people to know about the afterlife or, spiritual connection? What are some of the lessons that you've learned from this work that you would love to impart to other people?
The biggest thing for me is that we are not going to necessarily understand it all here. Um, Sometimes things happen in our life that our human minds can't comprehend or can't wrap around because it is so painful. Um, and for some people, it's event after event after event, and it just becomes very hard to understand why your higher self would choose this journey or at least choose part of the seeds that put you in on that path. And I think the biggest thing I want people to understand is you don't need to understand it all. The biggest thing that is important for you to do is just trust that your higher self always has your back, that your angels have your back, that your guides always have your back. And that it doesn't mean that it's the end, that while we've had difficult experiences, there's always time and your free will to change things and to choose something different. Um, it's not easy. It's not easy to look at yourself, look at, do shadow work, which I feel like everyone should do. I'm a full believer that we all need to take that time to look within ourselves and, you know, why we are the way we are and what things we can work on. It's not easy to do that, but I feel like it's important for all of us to do that and to really lean into um, the trust that where you're headed in life, that like spirit's going to guide you one way or another. Like, wow, it's not all pre-planned, you people have your back on the other side, whether we feel it or we don't feel it, and just kind of like trust that.
That's beautiful. There's so I can see why people trust you and they come in, they even people who come in a little skeptical and then leave with greater understanding and this greater knowing that there's something more here because there's so much beautiful depth in you, and
Thank you.
there's just this really grounded, beautiful depth, and I think that um, sometimes people go in, like you say, they're skeptical and maybe they're expecting kind of a joke or just and you bring I just don't even know. I don't have words to explain it, but you just bring such beautiful depth and understanding and compassion. Like I can just feel like there's just so much compassion within you, and all the challenges that you've faced, you have so beautifully integrated the wisdom of those challenges. And I just want to commend you for that, or just express the feelings that I feel now, having heard your story and having heard the experiences that you've gone through. And it's no wonder people would trust you and trust your guidance. It's beautiful. um, One of the questions I like to ask all my guests are there spiritual practices that you do on a daily or a weekly basis that help you stay connected?
Yeah, so actually, my number one thing will probably shock most people, but is taking a shower at the end of every day. And I'm going to tell you why. For me, I've learned that I absorb a lot throughout the day and a lot from people, working with people, or even just going out into the public, simply going to the store or whatever. I pick up on so much. And so for me, I've learned that at the end of the day, I've got to do something with that energy. So for me, whether, you know, feel like I'm clean or dirty, whatever, I just need to get in the shower and just allow the energy to wipe away from me. I visualize that water coming down and just cleansing me with love and healing energy, and just letting all the negative feelings and whatever kind of attached to me during the day wipe away and go down the drain. So that is probably what I would say is my number one thing that I always make sure I do. Um, Even if it sounds kind of, out of the box. But for me, it's something that I found like I need to find a way to ground my energy at the end of the day. And that's what's been most helpful.
Yeah, I love that. I needed to hear that. As you were saying that, I was like, oh, yeah, that's something. Maybe I need to change my routines a little bit to put that in because that feels very resonant. So thank you for
Yeah,
sharing. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and then before we go, just is there something else you would like to share? And also let everybody know where they can find you, because I'm sure they're going to want to connect with you.
Thank you. So I am on Instagram and on Facebook. I run a group. On Instagram, it's the Empathic Soul, and on Facebook, it's the Empathic Soul Tarot and Soul Work. It's just a group where I tend to post more on there. I'm not great with social media, I gotta be honest, but I tend to post more of like inspirational things there, and some of what I've learned about the spiritual world, and kind of diving deep into I do like daily shadow work stuff that I integrate in those posts. Sometimes I'll post tarot specials, but I've been kind of leaning more into, like, because there's so much chaos going in our world right now where people are being pulled one way and the other way. I'm just kind of using that group right now as more of like a grounding entity, so that when you see it come across, that it's something that either lifts you up or helps calm you. So that's what I've been using that group for. And kind of going along with that, one of the things that I kind of want to state as one of the last things is when everything kind of feels chaotic or fearful. I've definitely been in there. I've been at points in my life where it's just, I feel like there were times when all I could feel was anxiety,
Mhm.
and it was really hard to move. But it's so important, where there's fear and anxiety and feeling like needs to control, that you come back to love energy. What I tend to do every day as well as the shower is when I'm going through something difficult. I just close my mind and imagine the things that I love the most, things that ground me the most, whether it's my family, whether that's being outside in nature. Just try to plug into that and bring yourself back to neutral, as I want to put it. Because on the other side, there is no fear, there's like, there's no anger and sadness. It's all those lower vibrations don't exist like they do here. So that's where you're going to find the greatest point of grounding is when you bring yourself back to that love energy. Um, Even when things feel like it's hard to come up with something grateful, just even the littlest thing, like there'll be on difficult days I'll be like, I'm just really grateful the sun's out today, and it's beautiful out today and I can go outside and sit outside. So just even finding the littlest thing that brings you back to gratitude and love, that's what helps you get through the difficult days and sets the groundwork for you to be able to do that shadow work and continue on that path that is meant for you.
I love that. Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing everything that you've shared. It's been wonderful for me, and I know everyone is going to enjoy hearing from you. Thanks, Kristen.
You're so welcome.